Hi class, in this video I'm going to explain to you what you need to do for your written task. This is a major assessment that is important for your St. Moore grade and also for your IB grade. So for standard level English language and literature, in the course you're going to complete 2 written tasks and we choose the best one to go to the IB. And we'll do one this year and one next year. So the purpose of this presentation is to explain what the written task assignment is and what you're required to do. It also will hopefully give you a better understanding of how to do well, and will give you important guidance on how to get started with your written task. I think getting started is obviously a very important part of the process, but I think it's a very difficult one because students might not be sure of what to do. So hopefully after this presentation you'll have a relatively good idea of what you need to do, and you'll have some good steps to follow to get started with your written task. You can find out more information on the blog and Google Classroom as well. So what is the written task? It's 800 to 1,000 words of a text type of your choice. And so these are some examples of text types here. I'll give you a detailed list shortly. And in those 800 to 1,000 words, you need to convey an in-depth understanding of a particular aspect or aspects of the play Death of a Salesman. So basically you need to be demonstrating in that task what you've been learning so far in this unit. Now, of course, you won't be able to show everything that you've learned in this unit, so you will need to focus on particular aspects of the play. And this is accompanied by a 300-word rationale. A rationale means a reason for doing something. And so in this context, it means the reason why you've done the things you have in your chosen text type. So basically you're explaining here what you've done, how you've tried to convey ideas, or how you've tried to show your understanding of the play through the text type that you've chosen. You will include a bibliography, of course, because you are using at least one text, Death of a Salesman. You may be using others as well. You may, if necessary, include an appendices. So this could be, for example, if you're focusing on something particular, for any reason you need an appendices, you may need to include it. So what is the purpose of a written task? It is, first of all, it's an assessment. So it's assessing your ability to construct a written text using standard conventions with a deliberate purpose. And hopefully what you learned in semester 1 this year will be able to transfer into this task about how texts are created with particular purposes and audiences in mind, and then using language and using the text type for that to suit that particular purpose and audience. So I'm hoping that what you've learned in semester 1 will be able to transfer into this task. But it's also assessing your knowledge and understanding of the play. Of course, this could mean many things, and so it's important for you to focus on particularly what understanding of the play and how it's been created or relevant context are you going to show in your written text. And like any assessment in English, it's assessing your language skills, so your ability to use punctuation, grammar, and vocabulary effectively, and also your use of register. This means the style of your language that you're using. And the style of your language will vary depending on the text that you create. For example, the language used in an encyclopedia article would be very different to the language used in an informal blog post. And so you need to be able to adjust and adapt your language to fit the context for which you are writing. Or, for example, in this case, the context would be the text type. So, 2 big decisions. You need to figure out what text type you're going to write, and I'll give you a list shortly that might help you choose. And what aspects of the play to focus on. Like I said, you can't include everything in your written task, so you need to focus on particular aspects of the play. So here's a list of text types. You may want to choose one that's not on this list, but please just have it checked by me. The important thing when choosing a text type, I think, is that, well, you can't choose an essay, for one, because you are required to do that in other parts of the course. But also choose a text type that you understand the conventions, and I'll explain shortly what that word means. And also one that is conducive to writing 800 to 1,000 words. So, for example, a cartoon, very difficult to write 800 to 1,000 words, or you're going to be doing a lot of drawing. A chart, not so good as well for 800 to 1,000 words. So you do need to keep that in mind. So you do need to use the conventions of your text type, And the way I would define a convention would be a standard device or technique used in a particular text. So here are some examples. Newspaper articles have particular conventions. They are written in a particular style. They have a headline and a byline, which often the byline is who wrote the article and perhaps where they wrote it. And it has a lead paragraph, which includes the who, what, why, when, how, and it kind of follows a triangle structure. A script has stage directions written in italics, focuses mostly on dialogue between the characters. That's two conventions in a script. An interview, obviously, the conventions of an interview is it has questions and answers, and depending on the interview and who is being interviewed, it uses informal and perhaps it uses informal and conversational language because it is like a dialogue. If you're perhaps basing it more on a fiction style text, a short story or like an extract from a novel, of course you're not going to write a whole novel, but you may imagine that you've written the whole novel and you're just extracting a certain section from it. Would include descriptions, sensory detail, as well as direct and indirect dialogue. Sorry, that should say direct and indirect speech. So you'd have characters directly speaking to each other, as well as just paraphrasing what characters have said. So there are some conventions of short story or a novel. I imagine you will probably have to do some research into the conventions of your chosen text type. This is why I would recommend choosing a text type that you are already familiar with, and also please get guidance and feedback from me as to the conventions of your chosen text type. And like I said before, you can choose any text type except for an essay, but please just have it approved by me first before you go too far into the assignment. And as I said before, not all are conducive to this particular task. Not all text types will allow you to easily write 800 to 1,000 words. So, how to do well? Now, I'd like to refer back to our solo taxonomy, the structure of observed learning outcomes. So, what a good comprehensive answer or what a good comprehensive written task would look like. So the thing is here, you need to use the conventions of your text type. So that means, first of all, you need to know what those conventions are. You need to know why they are used, the effects that they have, and then you need to be able to use them for yourself in this particular written task. So that's the 3 levels of using conventions of your text type. You need to focus on significant aspects of the play, and there's a range that you could be looking at. Just look at the literary features that we've been studying so far, look at the historical context or any of the context that we've been looking at, and that can be your focus. So you need to know what those aspects are, you need to know the relationships between those aspects, and then you need to be conveying those in your own written task, and I'll give an example of that shortly. I would suggest that you need to be conveying similar ideas from the play in your written task. Now that could be, when I say ideas, this could mean themes, or it could be conveying ideas relating to character. It could be anything that you are conveying. So again, that is using the details, using whatever information you have to, and then they would have a relationship. So those details would be conveying ideas. For example, through your dialogue, you might be conveying character, and here we're looking at the relationship between dialogue and character. But why this is such a difficult task is that you are having to do that in your own work. Right? You're not only looking at and understanding how it's been done in the work of others, but you need to be doing it in your own written task. It's important that you also write for a purpose. So what that means is using language specifically. And language, of course, is a very broad term, but you need to be using your language for a particular reason and doing it in your own work. And again, so using language for deliberate effect. If you're using dialogue, if you're using facts, detail, if you're using figurative language, if you're using images in your text, whatever you are using, you are doing it for a particular reason. And that reason should be to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of significant aspects of the play. And your rationale should be clear and concise. You are not going to have 300 words is not enough time or words to explain everything that you've done in your written task and why you've done them. It is only enough really to give an overview of what you've done, to guide your reader into how you've shown your ideas and perhaps why they are important to the play. So here are my tips on getting started. You don't have to do this first. You don't have to do these in this order, but it is important, I think, to choose a text type that you're familiar with and you're comfortable with. Or perhaps it's one that you would enjoy writing, and you can learn about the conventions and how to write in that style, or write that particular text type through the process of this written task. But the more you know to begin with, the easier this task will be. If you pick a task that you've got absolutely no idea about, if you pick a text type that you have absolutely no idea about, it will make it a little bit tricky to do well, and it'll end up in you having to do more research. Of course, I'm trying to develop in you an understanding of the conventions of various text types, but of course, we don't have the time for me to enable you to, or to show you, tell you all of the conventions of any text type, and this is why you have to be doing some research on your own, perhaps. And I think it's important that you choose aspects of the text that you find particularly interesting. Is there a character that you particularly relate to? Is there a theme that particularly strikes a chord with you? Maybe it's something that happens in the play. So that you're going to be working at this in depth and for a number of hours, and so I think you should find something that you find particularly interesting. If you can't find anything that strikes you as particularly interesting, then it could be useful to choose something that you know really well in the play. What I would do is, the most difficult part of this, I think, is choosing the aspect of the text that you'll focus on that will allow you to demonstrate a deep understanding, but also to not be too broad. And that's quite a tricky task with this written task. So I think it would be useful to write in 1 or 2 sentences what part of the text, what aspects of the text you're going to focus on, and show me and just get some feedback from me. So I wanted to create some examples of what you may focus on when I say something like particular aspects of the text. What does that mean? So let's just take, for example, Macbeth. This is a play I think you studied last year. I know my class did. If you were in Mercedes' class, you would have studied this as well. Excuse me. So I could write a letter from a director to a set designer explaining how I want the set to look for certain aspects of the play. So here I would be demonstrating my knowledge and understanding of the stagecraft and dramatic techniques. So from the director to the set designer is a person whose job it is to create the set on the stage. So I would be including things, any sort of details that I want. And then I would be perhaps explaining in my letter to him why I want that, or why it's important. Or that could be included in my rationale. So I'm looking at not only plots and themes, dramatic techniques, stagecraft, but I would also make sure that I use the conventions of letter writing. Maybe I'd rewrite the final fight scene of Macbeth for a modern TV adaptation, and so I'd be using a film script, script text type, and I would be focusing on how a particular theme is conveyed in that scene. So through that, I'd be showing my understanding of the character, plot, themes, and also the conventions of scripts. Maybe I could write a blog post that laments over the historical inaccuracies in the play. So I would be, a lot of times, even in Hollywood nowadays, and Shakespeare did this as well, where he changes details to suit the purposes of his play, and a lot of history buffs, people who enjoy history, this frustrates them. So I could imagine that I was one of these people that was really annoyed the fact that Shakespeare has changed these differences to suit his own purposes, and I could write a blog post, as this is a common thing that people do nowadays. If they're upset, they go onto their blog and they vent. So here I'll be showing not only an understanding of the historical context and its significance in the play, but also the conventions of a blog post. Now, if you were to ask me what the conventions of a blog post, off the top of my head, it would be, I know what a blog post looks like, but then to put those down to words is quite tricky. And so here is where you would need to, I think it's a valuable thing to do, to write down and make a list of the conventions of the particular text type that you are writing before you go in or even during the process of writing your work, you're writing your written task. So that way you know that you are actually using a number of those conventions. So here are some final notes about just a couple of small aspects. You may have illustrations, and here's some instructions here on how to do that. And you must acknowledge all sources. This is important for academic honesty reasons. So this is what you need to know for your written task. There's a lot of information there. This is a rather complex and very difficult task to complete, so please ask questions at any stage and get feedback often throughout the process. Good luck.